Airtable automations are great for simple tasks, but let's be honest. Once your business starts to get a little complicated, those automations get messy, and they can start to break. If you've ever tried to build your own automation that has to make 3 or 4 different decisions throughout the process, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So in this video, I'm going to be walking through some of the limitations of Airtable automations and how a different tool, Zapier, can take your workflows to the next level. So if you're interested in learning more about how to properly automate your ideal Airtable database, stick around and let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth and this is Gap Consulting, and it's my mission here to help you to unlock the full potential of no-code tools. Airtable is still at the center of the no-code tools that we use, but Airtable automations, although they've come a long way, are not the be-all end-all when it comes to automating your workflow. So if you are ready to kick things up to the next level and do some more advanced automations, this is the perfect video for you. But before we get into it, I first want to invite you to join me for a consultation. If you are not quite sure how to move your Airtable project forward, our team is standing by to help you get unstuck. We offer one free inquiry call or strategy consultation to all of our viewers, and you can sign up at our website by clicking on the Book Now button in the bottom right. On this free call, you will get expert-guided advice within the 20-minute time allowed, and we will point you forward with next steps for your project. So if you're looking to ramp up your next Airtable build, that's the place for you. But now let's get into the heart of the video, and we are here to talk about the 3 core ways that Zapier automations help you take your automated workflows to the next level, beyond what a simple Airtable automation can do. Now, the first of these, as I kind of alluded to in the beginning of this video, has to do with decision-making within the automation. It really comes down to conditional pathing. To understand where Airtable's conditional pathing breaks down, let's first hop into an Airtable automation example. So we can build conditional paths in Airtable. The trigger of the automation is not the path. What we're looking at is what happens after. So on a brand new automation, you'll see whatever your trigger is, and then under that, the ability to add advanced logic or action. If you choose a conditional logic option, what this empowers you to do is build pathing within your automation. So let's say, for example, you have a lead that comes into your Airtable database, and you have an automation, and if it is a neutral lead, you want to send it one place, and if it's a positive lead, you want to send it somewhere else. If it's a negative lead, you might send it to a third place. So these are paths. We have different things that we want to have happen based on whatever information comes into the automation. Now, sure, we could build 3 separate automations, but who wants to do that? Let's instead use some pathing. So you can say in your path, if certain conditions are met, so let's say the name is something, if it contains 1, 2, 3, well, then that's our first condition. And then we can add another condition. If the name contains 4, 5, 6, you get the idea here. So obviously I'm just using sample data, so name doesn't mean anything. But in this case, we can add a bunch of different conditions, and then we would take separate actions based on those conditions. But what if it gets more advanced than this? What if you need to make that first decision and then another decision within the first decision? In this way, we're nesting the paths together. So we're saying, okay, if path 1 is chosen, then I might need to do a path again. Cool. So now I can add another thing here. And this one might be the Airtable record contains zeros. And then I might add another path in here where the Airtable record ID contains 1s. You get the idea. First, we're going to see if it goes into this path, and if it does, it's going to go a layer deeper. This is where Airtable's paths currently stop. So we cannot add another path inside. So we only get the 2 layers. Path 1, the top layer, and then the second layer inside the 2 other paths that we created here. So we don't get a 3rd or 4th or 5th layer to our pathing, and this is a limitation within Airtable. In addition to that, we can't use the other more advanced things like repeating groups. We only get the 2 layers that we discussed already. So in this case, we've done 1 layer of pathing. First layer is here, So I can add a second layer here, but I can only choose another path, conditional logic, or a repeating group. But once I make that choice, that's it. We're locked in, and we don't get any more advanced actions, as Airtable calls them. But that is not true for Zapier. Here's a Zapier automation, again, just sample data, and you can see that I've got something happening where it splits into paths. And I've built 3 different paths here, just as we had in Airtable. So we can go into these different paths and set up conditions, just like we did before, and say, hey, if something happens on the first step, if it contains ones, let's make that our first condition. Second step, we can add rules here, etc., etc. And then we have the actions that happen within. And you'll see that we get the ability to add another path, just like we did in Airtable. So we had first path was here, and then the second layer down is the next path. For Airtable, this is where it stops. But for Zapier, we can keep going. So for those more advanced scenarios, we get even more paths. So I've got the first decision tree, then the second decision tree, and then the third decision tree. And this can keep going and going. And we can also, inside of this, add more advanced steps as well. So if you need to do some looping, as Zapier calls it, we can add looping, we can add pathing, we can add looping within pathing or pathing within looping. The sky is the limit when it comes to Zapier because the automations are made to be far more advanced. So this is the first big limitation within Airtable automations and how to solve it using Zapier automations. No limits to how many paths or how many loops you can put into your advanced automations. Now let's shift gears and go into the second thing where Airtable automations get a little limited. But before I actually tell you what it is, I'm reminded about an old saying that I learned when I very first started in analysis and data management. And it is simple. Garbage in, garbage out. And that basically means if you've got junk information coming in and bad data, you're not going to be able to do anything valuable with it. You need your data to be clean and to be normalized so that when you're looking at it, you can really trust it. Because if you're trying to run a business on half-baked data, what are you even doing? And so this is where Zapier really shines, and Airtable really doesn't have a horse in the race. Because when it comes to automation within Airtable, all you can do in Airtable is use the data that's already in your database. We don't really have any formatting capabilities within Airtable automations, but that is not true for Zapier. Zapier offers the capability of manipulating the way your data comes in so that you can clean it up and it doesn't cost you anything extra. This is all handled within the feature or the action step within Zapier called Formatter. So let's do a dive into what this is. In order to use the formatter, simply add a new action step, and it's a popular built-in tool by Zapier. Select the formatter, and you'll see that you can choose to manipulate the way your information is coming in. So imagine you're building an integration with, let's say, HubSpot, and you're building an automation that's taking information from HubSpot to Airtable, and during that process, you want to clean up that data. You want to make sure that you don't have any capital letters in your email addresses, or you want to make sure that the first letter of a name is capitalized. This is just an example in dirty data, and I know that I've got tons of dirty data in my databases where I have not used Zapier as a formatter. So in order to do it the right way and make sure that that information comes in clean, you can choose between utilities, numbers, or date time, or text. Now, the examples that I've talked about here are text examples. So let's say we wanted to turn something to all lowercase. We would choose the text, and then we would find wherever that information lived previously, and we would choose how we want to transform it. So, for example, we might want to lowercase it. So we have the string.lower_case. This is the lowercase option within Zapier Formatter. And whatever we plug into here, whatever the input value we give it is, well, that will be entirely lowercase. So just as easy as this, we can take that information, let's say from HubSpot, plug it through our formatter, lowercase all of the letters in an email address before we then send it to Airtable. So this formatter doesn't cost you anything extra to run. Whatever the output is, we can then take that and put that information into Airtable in our next steps. And so this is how we can clean up our data before it ever even reaches Airtable. And this is not something Airtable automations have an answer for. That takes us to number 3, the third limitation of Airtable automations. And this comes down to how Airtable works when it's offline. So sometimes, not often, but sometimes Airtable might have a status update where they're having a bit of a hiccup. We've seen it maybe once or twice a month for short periods of time, usually over the last couple of months. And before then, we didn't see many status outages at all with Airtable, but it kind of comes and goes. When they are launching a lot of new features, these things are bound to happen. So with that, we should be prepared to make sure that our businesses are still able to run and operate if something were to go down or crash from our database, right? Well, with Airtable automations, we have the history. So you can go into the history of an automation, look at the run history and the revision history to see what's been going on. But this is a really manual process for you. If something happens to your Airtable database and your automation stopped running for a moment, you would need to go in and do a lot of cleanup to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. In fact, with the most recent Airtable outage, there was a problem within one of my Airtable databases that runs our company that I didn't know, and it took me a week before I actually realized why something was out of place. And it's because a record didn't update as it should have within Airtable during an outage. And so, how do you combat this? Leveraging Zapier is a key place to go and a really viable strategy to make sure that you have automations that are always on, even if your database is suffering an outage. So over here in Zapier, we have our Zap runs, and you can look at the Zap history just as you could within Airtable. The thing with Zapier is, depending on your plan that you pay for Zapier, you will have the ability to have your automations keep running in the background. If an automation fails and it's not able to do what it was supposed to do, it will just keep trying. It will continue trying until it's able to do it. So if Airtable is suffering an outage or another software is suffering some kind of outage, Zapier is not going to break. Your business is not going to come crumbling down. Your Zaps will run while you're sleeping, and everything will be fine when you wake up the next morning. So this is a real safety net with Zapier automations because of the ongoing attempts and the fact that they will continue in the background. Again, this does depend slightly on your plan with Zapier, but the fact that they will do all of this while you're asleep is just unbeatable. You don't have to worry about the integrity of your database should there be a status outage. So that's it for my 3 key takeaways on where Zapier really shines when it comes to automation superiority. Now, I should have said this at the beginning. I am not claiming that Airtable automations are not powerful, because they are. But Airtable is not my first go-to choice for an advanced automation. Simple automations that happen inside of Airtable, absolutely. But if you need a robust advanced automation, look to a third-party software like Zapier. I hope you got a ton out of this video. If you did and you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and, of course, thumbs up on the video. It goes a long way to help the channel and to show more content to you like this. Of course, if you have questions that we didn't quite answer here, swing by our website because we have a ton of valuable resources for you to check out. But most importantly, keep on building.